How's it going, everybody? This video is going to be a tutorial on how to use Axiom to trade meme coins, and I'm going to go over a lot of the settings and filters that I personally have been using since early 2024 to make around 7 figures in meme coins since then. I used to use Photon to do all the trading, and a lot of you might be familiar with what that is. Axiom's a bit of a newer platform, but in my opinion, it's a bit better, has more features, and a lot of people have been making the switch. And my settings from Photon are the same ones I use on here now. And so basically, when you sign up for Axiom, this is going to be the very first thing that you see. And this is the Discover page. Basically, this is going to be your deck screener and trending pages. And this is going to show you coins that have maybe been around for a little bit longer, higher market cap coins. I personally do not use this page at all. Not really of much use for us in trying to make money. I mean, it shows you like what's been around, but we're kind of going to be looking for the new stuff. So you can play around with this page. You have filters up here. You can do all these filters. Like I said, I don't touch any of it, but everyone's different. Now, at the top, you're going to come over to Pulse. And this is where all of the trading is really going to happen. To really make money in this market, you're going to have to put in the hours. You're going to have to sit here and stare. I probably have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours on sitting over here trading on Axiom and Photon. Their version is MEMEScope. But yeah, this is where you're going to spend the bulk of your time, and this is where a lot of like these filters are going to come into play. So you're going to have 3 columns right here. As you can see, this one's going really fast. You're going to have 3 columns over here. You're going to have your new pairs, final stretch, and migrated. New pairs is literally going to show every coin that is being made. Most of these coins are on Pump Fund. A lot of these coins are bullshit spam. And so that's where we're going to get the filters. And so these are the filters that I've been using. Like I said, everyone's different. Everyone has their own thing. You can do something different. Whatever works for you. I'm just showing what works for me and what I've been using. So I like to come down here to this B curve percent. Basically, that's the bonding curve percent. That's where the coin will graduate from Pump Fund, essentially, where there's enough volume, enough market cap that graduates to like their decks, their new pump swap decks, so to speak. I like to put the minimum at 20%. For that, basically, it's going to cut out a lot of like the bullshit that like nobody buys, like the really new stuff. It helps cut back on a lot of the spam, and it at least makes sure that there's some significant volume, not a ton, for it to actually show up here in your new pairs. So that's what I do for the bonding curve. I don't do any of these other things. I mean, you can if you want. I feel like it doesn't really help with anything. Obviously you can play around with it, kind of go from there. But yeah, B curve 20%. Then you're gonna want to come over here and click on the dollar metrics. And for these, I like to come down to the market cap. I like to put the market cap minimum 7,000. Again, basically, you're cutting back on like all this new pair spam shit, these $4,000 market cap coins. Nobody wants that junk. I don't want to see it. The difference between 4,000 and 7,000 is minuscule. And like I said, it's going to really help cut back on a lot of the spam. Again, you can play around with some of these other ones. The only other one that I typically use is I like to do volume. I like to do minimum $1,000. Basically, again, kind of cutting back on the spam, making sure that, the things that I really want to see are kind of getting narrowed down a little bit. Not super important. You can come up with your own number. for me, this is what I use. Obviously, I don't do any of the maxes either, because if you do maxes, you might miss some stuff. And then one more thing that I do use, and this is not as important, I like to do number of cells 7, just to show that there is some form of trading on there, that there is some volume. Some people will create coins with fake volume and fake market cap just to pump it up to show up on filters and hope that people are going to buy in. So I like to do number of cells of 7 to, again, cut back on the spam. As you can see, once I hit apply all, the spam will stop a little bit more. And yeah, very much cuts back on like the amount of coins that we're seeing. We're really only seeing the ones here that actually have a chance. Like I said, when you're getting all these spam coins at 4,000 market cap, the difference between a 4,000 cap and a 7,000 cap isn't going to be much, unless you're really trading like tiny numbers. So yeah, that's going to go ahead and take care of the new pairs, which is where you're going to spend a majority of your time. Final stretch is going to be where coins are about to graduate. To be perfectly honest, I have no filters on there. This is what it looks like. Literally don't do anything. Not really a point in my opinion. And yeah, this migrated tab, again, there's going to be some filters on here. Basically all the coins that have migrated show up here. In this current market, where there's so much junk that is getting pumped to 20, 30, 40, 50, 60K market cap and then immediately dying, you don't necessarily have to do any filters here because the volume has been slowing down recently compared to like a few months ago, for example. But here, just to, again, kind of cut back on shit that might be super dead, I don't do anything under the audit tab. Dollar metrics, I'll put like a minimum 15,000 market cap. And again, basically, like this Plan B coin that's very obviously dead, cuts back on some of the spam. And so yeah, I think these filters will really help you get dialed in into like actually seeing the things that you want to see. There's so much junk all the time. It can be hard to sift through the bullshit. I think you need some form of filter to kind of just, keep your head straight, make sure you're looking at the right things. Last thing on this page, if you've traded meme coins before, none of this should be super crazy. For example, so this coin, okay, we have the socials down here. This guy doesn't have any. But like this Opal AI coin, for example, you click this button right here, it'll take you to the Twitter that they linked. You click this button right here, it'll open their website that they have linked. If they have a Telegram linked, this button right here will search for the contract address on Twitter, so you can see if people are talking about it. Very useful in my opinion. A lot of people don't really link anything, but I highly, highly, highly recommend, if you're about to invest in something, to definitely check and see what's going on their socials. Very important aspect. So that should take care of the pulse. Again, this is where you're spending the majority of your time. This is where you're going to really be looking. And those filters should honestly really help you cut back on the bullshit. And there's not really much more to say. Keep your eyes glued here. Again, use the socials, use the filters, and just stare. Literally just sit here all day, 12-hour shifts, till you get out of the trenches. Up next is going to be trackers. And I personally only use the wallet tracker. I might make a video on the wallets that I track. But, something that you can do is just go to like KOL Scan or, find your own wallets. I might make a video on how to search and source for wallets. And basically you can just throw them in here. And all the wallets that you track, if you go look at a coin, like for example, this coin I made some money on recently. This guy right here. So like if I had a wallet tracker set up, for example, I could see like where the wallets that I track are buying on this chart if I really wanted to. And again, you don't have to use wallet tracker. A lot of people don't like using it because they think that it like maybe influences decisions that they might not have made before, like seeing somebody that you track, like let's say sell a coin, but you want to stay in the coin. And then the person that you track sells, you sell, it ends up being the wrong decision, yada, yada, yada. But I can definitely make a video on how to find wallets to track. It can be helpful. Honestly, not a huge deal, in my opinion. The next tab is going to be perps trading. If you don't know how to do this, I don't really recommend touching it. Basically, you're just betting on coins to go up or down using leverage to increase the size that you'd be trading with. The Axiom perps platform is linked to Hyperliquid. So if you know what that is, you can either just trade directly on Hyperliquid or you can use Axiom. Obviously, Axiom, you don't need a VPN. Hyperliquid, you do need a VPN. But for the most part, I mean, if you know what you're doing here, great. If not, I wouldn't necessarily recommend touching this right off the bat. And then kind of just going from there, yield, I don't really do any staking. In my opinion, I don't think it's worth it at all. Portfolio, that's where you're going to see like what you actually have, the coins that you actually have. And then rewards. Basically, you can refer people to trade on Axiom and you can get a % back of their fees. And as you trade more and more, you'll unlock some rewards. You'll level up your account, so to speak, and you get like discounts on fees and everything. It's a pretty cool system. They do a lot more than what pump funds are initially doing, and it's part of the reason why I like using Axiom so much. And so yeah, honestly, those filters really all that you need. The last thing I can go over is like actually looking at a chart, and what I do to look at a chart. Obviously over here you have the token info, you have your top 10 holders %. Does the dev hold any? Is there insiders? Is there snipers, bundlers, etc.? Some of these aren't super important. Definitely this dev holdings is important because obviously, the dev sells, it kind of fucks everything. But yeah, like when you're buying your coins, you'll have your buy, your sold, your P&L right here. I don't really do anything with like the limit orders, the advanced, anything like that. If you know what those are, obviously you can use them. I personally do not. Most of the time you're just market buying. And the other thing is over here on the left side, you're charting, the way that things have been going lately. I highly recommend using the 1 second chart. The quicker you can make a decision in this current market, the better. Things are constantly moving fast. Things are dying, pumping. It's really a quick market, and honestly, using anything besides the 1 second chart is kind of a bore. And yeah, I mean, that's really it. I don't use too much else, I don't believe. You can have like your my trades, dev trades, track trades. I'd recommend keeping all of these things on. Obviously, you have your socials, everything up here. If you want to use indicators, you can use indicators. I personally don't. And so yeah, it's a really basic tutorial. Obviously, I didn't go into too much detail, but essentially all you really need to do is use those filters. I promise, just sit here, stare. You will make some money. And if you have any ideas, on other filters that you like, other recommendations for things that you're using, feel free to drop them in the comments. If you have any questions, let me know. I know this is kind of a bit of a rushed video, but I'm really just trying to get something out there as I make more content in the coming days and weeks. If you check the description, I'll have a link to Axiom. I'm going to start a Discord where you guys can come join and talk, and maybe even a Telegram, but I'm not super sure about that. Really, I kind of just want to like create a community and kind of just go from there. So yeah, I mean, I hope you guys enjoyed. Like I said, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I'll read all the comments. I'll help you guys out. I totally don't mind. And yeah, just once again, come on to Pulse, stare at Pulse. These are going to be the settings that you want to use for the new pairs. Final stretch, we don't use anything. Then migrated, we just keep it at 1500 market cap, kind of to just sift out all the bullshit. I hope you guys found this video helpful. Let me know if you did. Let me know what else you want to see. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.